Inside and outside the Constitutional Court on Saturday, the 21st of January 2023, the Democrats stormed the court to hear the pronouncement of the petition against the result of the legislative elections held on the 8th of January 2023. After the reading of the report of the hearing, debate ensued between members and supporters of the Democratic Party. The atmosphere was characterized with annoyance and dissatisfaction of the Democratic Party members. This political party filed an appeal on the 19th of January 2023, demanding the High Court to enjoin the General Election Directorate to provide them with a copy of the compilation report of the results of the 546 districts in Benin within the framework of the legislative elections held on the 8th of January 2023. The reports were allegedly denied access by polling station officials and the district coordinators on the evening of the election. According to the party, the responses from this appeal would enable them lodge an appeal to contest the results, which they consider fraudulent. According to Eric Kuradete, representing the party in court, the reasons given by the district coordinators and polling stations agents for not making these results available was that the printed copies that was to be given to the representatives of the candidates and political party was not sufficient to go round. This argument is considered by the Democratic Party as a violation of the Electoral Code. In contrast to the Democrats, the Autonomous National Electoral Commission, Senai, which is also represented in the courtroom to defend itself, believes that the law does not require it to deliver the reports to a political party after the elections. The Autonomous National Electoral Commission also said that the reports required by the political party, the Democrats, before lodging an appeal to contest the results, have already been sent to the Constitutional Court, who obviously used it for the announcement of the final result. After this part of the discussion came the position desired by the report of the hearing. The report of the hearing of the Constitutional Court wants the court to reject the request of the Democratic Party, with the arguments that the Democratic Party had a duty to claim the results on the election ground after the vote and not after the election. The Constitutional Court referred to Article 63, 89, 92, and 93 of the Electoral Code, which gives the representatives of the party, the Democrats, the full right to be issued with the minutes of the compilation of the election results immediately after the reading of the report. The floor was again given to the applicant Eric Walter, who explained to the court that he implicitly understands in this report that the party of which is the president would have had to use force and violence to recover the report, whereas his party opted for peace. The three lawyers supporting the political party, the Democrats, at this hearing underlined the inconsistencies, especially on the part where Senai sends the political parties, the Democrats, to go to the Constitutional Court to have the report of the compilation of the results, which they would have already made available, which the court would have already used for the proclamation of the results, and that in turn the Constitutional Court, on the occasion of the same lawsuits, sends the party, the Democrats, back to the election field where it should have demanded for the report. Three lawyers of the Democratic Party will finish their indictments by demanding in turn that the court does not flout the right of the people if it aspires for a country of peace. Once the floor was given to the defendants, which is Senai, represented by its legal counsel, the Constitutional Court, through the voice of its president, before adjourning the hearing, indicated that the responsibility of peace that the lawyers of the political party of the Democrats speak about does not fall on one person, and that the people do not belong to one camp or to one individual. The verdict of the hearing will be notified to the parties later. It should be recalled that another appeal by Musa Rafi, or the candidate on the Democratic Party list in 2023 legislative elections, had been filed requesting the invalidation of the seat of Colin Benoit, already elected on the Republican bloc list on the 10th electoral district. The Constitutional Court announced the postponement of the hearing of the second appeal to Thursday, the 26th of January 2023. 81 seats for the pro-government movement, 28 for the Democrats. This is the retained result for the outcome of the 2023 legislative elections in Benin Republic. Away from that, still of course on the local scene, now after the verdict of the Constitutional Court following the legislative elections on the 8th of January, the opposition Democrats obtained 28 seats against 81 deputies for the presidential majority. Now with this result, what should we expect? A probable amendment, some citizens expressed their opinion on the issue.
Centraliser leurs résultats. Vous avez observé que dans le même temps, les partis du pouvoir qui soutiennent le pouvoir se sont comportés de façon républicaine en laissant aux instances habilitées la latitude de donner les résultats.
All the parties that went to the elections compiled the results. You have observed that at the same time, the Renewal Progressive Union Party and the Republican Bloc, the parties that support the government, have behaved in a Republican manner and leaving it to the empowered bodies to deliver the dividend of democracy. Now, you say that a party has gone to court and asked to have the results made available to them. Is that right? The court that has proclaimed the results and has gone as far as proclaiming the votes constituency by constituency. If I'm a party and I claim victory, I will tell the court, here are my figures. I have my figures which show that I won. Compare it with the vote you have. You do not tell the court to give you your figures. Rather, you bring your figures to the court and tell the court to compare and contrast the figures. Anyway, if I was a party, that is what I would do. If I'm a serious party and I think I won, I have the figures, I will say to the gentleman of the court, I won the elections. Here are my figures in such and such commune. I have such and such figures in such and such district. But if you do not do that, you understand that it could be an oppressive appeal. I would say, just to maintain the illusion among party members, that the victory was acquired in the ballot box and that it was snatched from them. This is not likely to maintain the democratic confidence that our people should have, neither in our constitution nor even in the voting institution. Still, of course, on the local scene, now a question has been ringing in the minds of the populace. Now, with this new legislature, what should they expect? Are they going to expect a probable amendment of the Constitution? Now, here are the thoughts of some citizens on this particular issue. They tend towards an amendment of the conditions of the Constitution. That is not true. The question is that, are they actually elected for the purpose of amending the Constitution? I do not think so, but that is the case. When they get to the legislature and good suggestions come up for the betterment of the state, which demands the amendment of the Constitution, then the Constitution can be amended. They are in the legislature to represent the people. They are not there for themselves, and that is what the people want. If the people want the Constitution amended, then when it is appropriate, the Constitution must be amended by the legislative arm of government. That is the will of the people. Do you understand? So that is it. It is not the will of the senators, but rather it is the will of the people. They are there individually. All those who were elected are unique in their own way. They came out of a family, which is a social cycle. It is the people who elected them, and it is their duty to do what the people want, and that is what should be done. Every legislature, there is a party that controls the majority. It is evident that the people have chosen. And what the people want is what the legislature should do. It is up to them to know the heart cry of the people, and this can only be achieved by associating closely with the populace. If the people want the Constitution to be amended, then it should be amended. It must also be voted on before the Constitution is amended. It is the duty of the legislature to study, to really see what the people want and try to do what the people want. These are my thoughts regarding this subject.
En temps normal, c'est vrai que la mouvance ayant regroupé, n'est-ce pas, 53 députés.
Normally, it is true that a movement is well grouped, is it not? 53 members of parliament from the Renewal Progressive Union Party, 28 members of parliament from the Democratic Republican Bloc. In the Beninese National Assembly, the Beninese legislature, there is a presidential majority in the National Assembly. But the question you're asking is that, is it appropriate? Is it not a new revision of the Constitution? Is the Constitution that existed, has it been voted for? This Constitution that is in existence, has it already been put to test? Have we finished experimenting to the point of considering amending the Constitution? Is it necessary? Is it not important to take time to experiment, to see the loopholes, the faults, the gaps, the weaknesses of this Constitution before thinking of a new amendment? So I do not think it is appropriate. To do what the Beninese want is to know what is needed. Certainly, there has been evolution. We have seen some things that have changed, but also it will be necessary that we do the needful. Still on the local scene, Wilfred Hazel OGOIGBE, the spokesman for the government, did not fail to reassure the populace on the quality of work of the ninth legislature, but also on the parliamentary majority held by the government in view of the announced results.
satisfaction parce que cette majorité confortable va lui permettre de continuer à mettre en œuvre son programme d'action du gouvernement, dont les impacts sur nos populations sont de plus en plus évidents, de plus en plus manifestes, à telle enseigne que les populations elles-mêmes viennent ainsi de signifier au gouvernement qu'elles comprennent de plus en plus sa politique, disent au chef de l'État qu'elles lui font davantage confiance pour continuer à mettre en œuvre.
There is satisfaction because this comfortable majority will allow him to continue to implement his government's actions program, whose impact on our people is increasingly evident, becoming more and more evident as the day goes by. To the extent that the people themselves have just told the government that they understand its policy. In this respect, the political parties are telling the head of state that they have more confidence in him to continue implementing his policy, which is why they do not intend to obstruct his action by granting a majority to an opposition that could decide tomorrow to question the fundamental choices that have been made and that are producing the results that we are increasingly observing. It goes without saying that this is an approval. I would say that it is a popular ratification of the government's actions, of the fundamental options taken by a country since 2016, because it seemed to me that I heard certain political actors and even certain media actors, and they share the same thoughts, making this election a referendum for or against President Patrice Talon. And I want to specify here that Patrice Talon did not even get involved in the campaign. However, he was in the dark and the people have just given him a resounding majority. So it was a beautiful ratification of the policy of Patrice Talon as the head of state and the head of government, the policy of his government, and it is an absolute mark of confidence. If we are democratic and we consider that in a democratic system like ours, the truth belongs to the people, because the people are not mistaken, they make choices and they own up to the choices. We respect the people's choice, and on the government side, we respect the choices of all our fellow citizens who, on that day, did not go to vote for various reasons. Scientists, sociologists, and political scientists can analyze the various reasons some people did not exercise their franchise. We respect the choice of 25%, I would say 30% overall, of the population who chose the opposition parties. We also respect and appreciate the choice of 70% who chose the parties that support the government's actions. I say this because, on the contrary, it seemed to me that one of the parties in the competition had only 16 votes. If the party recognizes the areas it was unable to win the election and consider the people that voted, it is unfortunate that it does not recognize and respect a large part of the people who did not vote for it, because its attitude demonstrates the rest of the people were right or did not even exist. You will have been right in recognizing where you won, to recognize also where you lost, to say that it is a choice of our fellow citizens. We respect them. That is the attitude of democracy. We respect the choice of those who did not vote for the parties that support the government's actions, just as we respect and appreciate the choice of those who voted for the parties that support the government's actions. Journalists in Cameroon gathered on Monday, the 23rd of January in Yaoundé to pay respect and demand justice for the killing of their colleague Martinez Jogo, who was abducted last week and whose body was found weekend near the capital. Journalists in Cameroon gathered on Monday, January the 23rd in Yaoundé to pay respect and demand justice for the killing of their colleague Martinez Jogo, who was abducted last week and whose body was found this weekend near the capital. The mutilated body of Zogo was found on Sunday near Yaoundé, the capital of Cameroon, 5 days after he was kidnapped.
Well, I think the death of Martinez Zogo is something terrible and even terrifying for journalists, because there is a mixture of cruelty and arrogance in the killing of Zogo. When you see all the mutilations that his body suffered and the fact that his body was thrown in a field like that, I have the impression that this is a message that was sent to all independent journalists.
Journalists gathered holding candles, flowers, and banners demanding justice. Friends and colleagues stood outside the radio station Amplitude FM, where Martinez Zogo worked. Zogo hosted a popular daily show on Amplitude FM where, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, he recently commented on alleged embezzlement in public sector procurement that benefited a prominent businessman.
We ask them to accompany civil society organizations so that the state of Cameroon can report in accordance with the treaties and conventions freely ratified, that all chains of sponsors and performers be publicly punished. They are all known.
Zogo served a 2-month prison sentence for criminal defamation in 2022, the CPJ said.
On the foreign scene, Janet Yellen, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, pays Zambia a visit. Now, she assured the Zambian government officials that restructuring the country's debt was a U.S. priority, and it was a priority for the United States. And during the U.S. Treasury Secretary's visit to Zambia, she focused on the agricultural sector.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen spent most of her visit to Zambia Tuesday talking about the agricultural investment potential of African nations, especially as Russia's invasion of Ukraine has affected hunger and the cost of food worldwide. In a village in Changwe, an hour from the capital Lusaka, Yellen emphasized not only tackling acute food needs, but also scaling up investment in food system resilience for the long term. Speaking to a group of mostly female farmers participating in the U.S.-backed Green Climate Fund for small-scale agriculture operations, the Treasury Secretary also voiced support of including Africa more in global food fertilizer markets and supply chains. On Monday, she met with Zambia's president and its finance minister, whom she assured that restructuring of the country's debt was a priority for the United States. Zambia was the first African country to default on its foreign debt, estimated at about $17 billion during the COVID pandemic. The country has asked for help through the Group of 20's so-called Common Framework, but implementation has been slow, with the U.S. accusing China of slowing down the process. But Yellen said she was encouraged after meeting last week with the Chinese vice premier in Switzerland.
Let me say, I know that the Chinese have been a barrier to concluding the negotiation. I specifically raised the issue of Zambia and asked for their cooperation in trying to reach a speedy resolution.
China's foreign minister, who recently visited 5 African countries, has rejected claims that China has not been committed to helping Africa ease its debt burden, insisting his country is an active participant in the G20 debt service suspension initiative. Before Zambia, Yellen visited Senegal, where she met with Senegalese President Macky Sall, his finance minister, and other officials. She also spent time at a business incubator with women entrepreneurs. Yellen will wrap up her tour with a visit on Wednesday to South Africa, where Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had talks on Monday with his South African counterpart Naledi Pandor. Russia is pushing to strengthen ties with an historical ally amid the war in Ukraine. South Africa was among several African nations in the United Nations General Assembly that abstained from a vote calling for Russia to be suspended from the Human Rights Council.
It was a wake-up call to the United States, the vote that took place in April of last year, where the United States tried to rally the world to condemn the Russian invasion, and it really fell short, specifically on the African continent. And I think it was a reminder that if you want to be the leader of the free world, you have to try to lead that world. And if people aren't willing to follow the call for democracy and liberty, then you have real worries on your hands.
Next on the list of U.S. cabinet members to visit Africa is U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, who plans to travel to Ghana, Mozambique, and Kenya starting Wednesday.
The American President Joe Biden is pushing assault weapon ban renewal following mass shootings in the United States of America. More information in the following report.
2 days after a gunman killed at least 11 people in Monterey Park as the city's Asian American community was celebrating Lunar New Year, shootings in 2 locations at Half Moon Bay, also in the state of California. At least 7 people died.
We got serious about these things and led the nation on assault weapons bans, large capacity magazine clips, background checks on ammunition, waiting periods, and red flag laws, saving lives. But the federal government hasn't done it.
California is one of 10 states that prohibit the sale or possession of military-style assault weapons. California Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein is introducing a bill to reinstate a federal ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines and raise the minimum age to purchase such weapons to 21. As a senator, President Joe Biden championed the ban in 1994, but it expired in 2004.
The last time we had an assault weapons ban on the books, thanks to the president and Senator Feinstein's leadership, mass shootings actually went down. After Republicans let it expire, mass shootings tripled.
With Republicans in control of the House of Representatives, there is little chance of the bill passing. Polls show most Republican voters oppose restrictions on the right to bear arms under the Second Amendment. And with the conservative-leaning Supreme Court overturning a New York gun safety law in June, other states may find their gun restrictions threatened as well.
Nothing will happen really until we address not only everyday legislation, which is important, but really the Supreme Court that's undermining the gun safety movement right now in really catastrophic ways.
There have been 40 mass shootings so far in 2023. Absent congressional action, Biden is considering more executive actions to deal with reducing gun violence, but such moves can be overturned by a successor. Last June, he signed a bipartisan gun safety bill into law. It strengthened background checks for gun buyers under 21 and gave incentives for states to pass so-called red flag laws that make it easier to remove weapons from people deemed a threat to themselves or others.
And our dear viewers, this is where we conclude today's edition of Focal Point, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV AFRICA with Hazel OGOIGBE. Coming up next is Lo Serge Lingfo with Shabela. You enjoy your evening.